All right. So, like I was saying, originally I was gonna make it a little bit shorter, but I decided that I wanted to that the comic needed to be a little bit longer, just for things like pacing. There were scenes that I wanted to add in. So these are not hard and fast rules. Like you have to, once you choose a length or once you choose something that you think is reasonable, you have to stick with it. If you feel that, okay, I need a few more pages here, or I said I was going to do this many pages, but I should take a couple of pages out, or I should take a couple panels out because they're not necessary, that's completely fine. These are just like guidelines. So, yeah, just going back over it, number one is I forgot what number one was. I just been yapping. So number one or number two is be realistic, right? So be realistic with what you want to do. Number one was have some sort of guideline of what your story is going to be and what you want to do. So let me say that again. All right, you ready? Okay. Number one, make sure you organize and have some sort of guideline for how you want your story to develop, right? Whether that's bulletin points, whether that's a synopsis, have some sort of guideline. Number two, be realistic with what you can complete given your circumstances. So, another thing I didn't mention too is at the time of making the second issue of Grim Living, I was working the entire time. I was working a full time. So, like things like that is going to consume your time, so just be mindful of that. So if you have kids, or if you have school or other responsibilities, making sure that you are keeping that into account while you're making your comic, or when you're figuring out what's realistic and what's not realistic, that's also important, right? So now that we got rule 1 and 2 out of the way, rule number 3 is, and I didn't I'm doing all this off the cuff, like all this on the fly. My new rule number 3 for you is, well, yeah, hmm I'm doing this like in real time. I'm trying to think. I had this thought out, but you should always write things down. So my rule number 3 is going to be organized. Be organized when you're creating your comic. So what I mean by that is, yes, you're doing the bulletin points. Yes, you're being realistic. Now let's organize everything. So like what I'll do, and let me see. Open. Boom. So you see here, I have chapter 1, Grim Living New, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. If I want to check to see how many pages I have done, chapter 2, I got 2 pages completed. Now, what I'll also do is I'll split them up. Like, these are my inks pages, these are my sketch layers, everything like that. So I always know how much work I've done. And if you know how much work you've done, you know how to space out your work. So, okay, I have to do this day. Also, if possible, scheduling time for you to work on your comic helps out immensely. So, like my schedule, for example, I'd go to work, and then right after the work, I go to the gym. On the weekdays, because I'm coming back home at like 8 o'clock, 8:30 sometimes, right? So I don't really have the time nor the energy to like put into doing a full page of a comic. So instead, what I would do is I'd say, okay, let me get the all the roughs, like the very, very rough drawings. Let me get all those done on the weekdays. So on the weekdays after I come home, and it's not that crazy to do, but I get all the roughs done, right? And then if I have some extra time, okay, I could start doing the sketch layer in this program I'm using, which is Clip Studio Paint. And then on the weekends when I have more time, now we can start doing the inking. Now we can start doing the thing. So just organizing your time and your comic like that will help immensely. Also, going into organizing your comic, this kind of goes back to rule number 1, where it's like make sure you're plotting everything out. I like to go deep with it because I know like if you give me a chance to just like run off the cuff, I will. So what I like to you gotta hate this. I was making changes to the wrong layer this entire time. Yeah, man. For all you artists out here, you feel my pain when you make changes to the wrong layer. Oh man, it does suck. That's fine. But what you want to do is what I like to do as well is like for each page really, right? So how I would structure mine is I would go ahead and before anything touches the paper, I'm writing down, I'm looking at what I wrote down in the beginning, so the overview of my story. And now I'm looking at page 1. What do I want? So these things I have to do in page 1. What do I want to accomplish in this page? And then I'd write down the action that should happen. So like this page for example, page 3. So I'd put MC, main character Tom, cutting down the colossal demi and then walks away angrily. So that's what I've written down. And then the second part that I would do is, okay, I've written it down. I know what needs to happen. Now how am I going to show it? I know some people may work a little bit better with everything in text. Like let me just write down exactly what's going to happen. Uh, like um, like it's script writing or it's writing for a movie or something like that. I work better visually. So what I do is after I have that like little overview of the page, I will then go ahead and start doing the super roughs, right? So in that way I have a chance to like play around with, okay, I kind of like what's it called, I kind of like where this is going, this is the panel setup, I like that. I've tried doing it before where I'm writing everything down, like what's it called, I write, okay, we're gonna have an extreme close-up or we're gonna have a wide shot or we're gonna have this, and I didn't like how little creativity that gave me in terms of the drawing, because I like personally, I just didn't thrive when I did it that way. And again, if you thrive doing it that way, where you're writing everything down and then drawing, then yeah, for sure, do it whatever way is comfortable for you. But so long as you have like something to take reference from, right? So after I'm done writing it down, what's happening in the page, and then doing the what's it called? Doing the extra roughs, and then I'm finished. Let's say I go ahead and I finish the sketching in the actual what's it called, in the actual program, and then I do my lines. The next thing I would do, even before then, um, as soon as I'm done the sketches, now I have to think about dialogue. What's happening, and the reason why you want to think about dialogue before you commit anything is you want to know where speech bubbles are going. So a lot of time, newer comic book artists, newer artists, we're more visual people. You know what I mean? We're looking at, okay, yeah, this is a good what's composition. This is a good setup. These colors are good. And then dialogue comes in last. So when you put your speech bubbles in there, it looks very shoehorned in. You have to make sure that you're also planning out where the speech bubbles are going, right? So as soon as I'm done the roughs, what's my dialogue? And for me, it's easier to figure out what the dialogue is once I know exactly what the action is. I already have an idea of where I want the story to go and how I want the characters to interact with each other. We already covered that in step 1. And now the next thing is, now let's just get to the nitty gritty. Once again, I used to do this all in one go, but for me, it felt a little bit unnatural. I didn't like doing it that way. And I'm a type of person that likes to add in and take away things all the time. I'll give you an example. If you look at, oh, not that. If you look at this character here, this is codename Peachy, and she appears in the first. This is a page from the first issue of Grim Living, and originally she was just going to be a throwaway character. She was literally just going to be a character to get the plot moving. But as I look, I like this design. I like this character. This could be a very cool character. I like the little dynamic that she had with the main character. So I'm like, you know what? I want to write a bigger role for this person. And you don't necessarily allow yourself to do that once you commit everything to stone in the first step. So that's why, if you want to do, that's why I did dialogue a little bit after, because even though this is set up, I can still do the dialogue and then be like, okay, this is the role I want her to play. And now moving forward, that's the role that she's going to play. So yeah, that's what I like to do regarding the third step. So just going back over it again, and this is just for the TikTok. So I could go to several times within this video and then just take a clip and be like, ah, yes, this was perfectly made. So first step again is you want to make sure you have some sort of synopsis, bulletin points of your story. You know what's happening in your story and you know when your story ends, right? You know the action that leads to the ending. The next thing that you want to do is you want to be realistic with what you can actually get done, given your circumstance, given your skill level, given your budget. What can I realistically get done? Then the next thing that you want to do is you want to get more into the nitty gritty and you want to start organizing your work. This is how I'm going to set up my work. This is how I'm going to save my work. This is how I'm going to track my progress, right? If you do those three things already, you're going to be so far ahead and you're setting yourself up for success, because not only do you know when your story ends and what you're actually doing, but then you're being realistic. So it's something that you can feasibly complete in a very respectable amount of time. And now, because you're so organized, you have everything everywhere where you need it. Your story is organized. So you know your process that you're going through. And remember, the process can change. It's all depending on what you like to do better. Now, the fourth step is simple. You just got to do it. After you're organized, after you set up, you just got to go out, and now it's your turn to just complete the comic. And it's easier said than done. Sometimes you just don't feel motivated to work. Sometimes what's it called, you're trying to do a page. I'll give you an example. I'm trying to do this page today. This is just a sketch layer, and over here I'm trying to do like a top down view of a building that's crumbling, and I have never drawn a crumbling building, so I'm like really trying to figure it out. And I understand it halts your progress when you're trying to do something that you haven't done before, right? You're trying to figure it out, you get frustrated, you may take a little break and then come back to it. It has to get done, but I understand how hard it is, when you're trying to just stick to one thing and do it. So like, I understand. I understand where you guys are coming from. But yeah, like the fourth step is you just got to do it. And you know what? It's super rewarding. I remember when I was first holding Grim Living in my hand for the first time, and I'm like I couldn't even believe it for a second. I'm like, damn, like this is I got a comic book. Like this is a comic book. And like for a lot of people who want to make comic books, especially people who are like myself who've been drawing from young, like you just been thinking about that since you were a kid. Like, oh, how cool would it be if I had my own? Or how cool would it be? So it's super rewarding. Even though it's a lot of work, it's super rewarding doing. So those would be my four tips for new comic book artists. Oh, actually, surprise fifth tip: do research on the industry. Do research on the comic book industry. Do research on what's acceptable practices for most business stores. Do research on how much you need to make in order to turn a profit from your comic, as well as like the practices most comic book stores get into. When I did it, I kind of was like a fresh booty with it. So like I was just going in there. I had a local game store that also sold comic books, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna present them like this, and I'm gonna do this. And then he's like, okay, so how much are you selling it for? And I'm like, he's like, okay, how much is the cost of shipping? I'm like, I didn't like he was a really nice guy. He was a super nice guy. And he helped me through the entire process. He's like, hey, go do your numbers on these, go do your numbers on this, and then come back to me and we'll talk, right? So I went ahead, I did that. I severely lowballed myself. So I was selling them because usually what happens is they would buy the comic books from you. So let's say I'm selling them for $8, right? I'm selling them for $8, and let's say per comic book it costs me about $6 plus whatever shipping is, right? I didn't have to pay shipping because I just picked up my comic books from the press, but let's say it costs $6 plus shipping, right? So you want to turn a profit, you want it to be profitable, so you got to kind of upscale that, right? So let's say so mine cost me like about 550 per comic, and I sold them for about like 30. Originally I was gonna sell them for $6, and I was doing this because I thought it would be like more enticing. Like, okay, it's $6, so if you mark it up, I believe it's I can't remember the exact markup prices. You guys, if you're into that, check out the markup prices that most comic book stores or retailers uh, do comic books for. And I'm like, okay, I'm selling it to you for $6. You can upmarket to about $10, and then you're making a profit from that. You're making like a $4 profit from that. He's like, no, don't do that. You like even though I understand what you're doing, you're just trying to get yourself out there. You don't want to take a loss. You want to make some money. So what we arranged is uh, I would sell them for so they'd be 7, right? And he'd mark up whatever. So from whatever price he sells it for, he'll give me $7 out of that, right? So I give it to him for nothing, and then when he sells, that's when I get something. There are other places that will just be and this is like where your research comes in. Make sure you're researching comic book stores. Make sure you're getting into contact with them even before you're ready to sell, just so you're building that repertoire. That's what I did, and it helped out immensely. And I know there's a lot of comic book stores. There's a lot of vendors. There's a lot of people that really want to support budding talent. So they'll be like, yeah, okay, what are you selling it for? You're selling it for 7? I'll buy it for 7. Right? And they'll just buy it off you right there, which is great. Definitely sixth tip. Definitely talk to other people who have made comic books before, who are a part of this industry, and that way they can give you tips on how to navigate through the system. Like I said in the last stream, originally Grim Living was going to be like this huge behemoth that was going to be about uh 3 chapters. It's going to be 3 chapters in total, right? Or 3 issues all in one. And I was going to sell like that. And then one of the other comic book artists, let me see if I could remember her name so I could give her a little shout out because she helped me out immensely. And I think it's Leanne. Let me check. Let me give the Instagram. So okay, so the Instagram, Facebook, Twitter of this artist I'm about to talk about, and she was the artist of Chaotic Good. If you're into D&D, it's super good. Like it's literally just a D&D campaign. I'm getting back into D&D myself, so if you're into D&D, search up Chaotic Good, and their Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter handle is at Jupe Rocket. So that's JUPE and then Rocket, all one word. So yeah, Jupe actually seen what I was doing because they were selling their comic out of the same place I was selling mine out of, and they had told to me, hey, instead of doing this like really huge comic that's it's gonna cost more money to print, you don't really have a fan base, just do the first issue, use that to build a fan base, And then when you're done like all three issues, you can do like a big one, and that'll be like a collector's edition or something like that. And that's actually why I printed the first issue of Grim Living as quickly as I did, because I had already finished the first issue. I was waiting to finish the other ones. So even small things like that, even like I had another artist, and I think it's Legendary Builds on Instagram, and they're another person that made a comic, and they're telling me, hey, when you're ready to do conventions, give a shout out to this person, and this person can get you set up with like a decently priced booth and this and that and the third, and they do great promotions and everything like that. So definitely, if you're going to be in this industry, talk to people within this industry, because there's a lot of nice people out there that want to help, right? Like, myself, I if one person sees this stream and they're like, oh yeah, let me do a comic book, and let me take the advice I got from Grim Living Comics, I would be happy, right? So yeah, just going back over the points. Number one, make sure that you have bullet points or synopsis or something for your comic. You know how it's going to begin, you know how it's going to end, at least for the first issue. Second thing you want to do is be realistic in what you can actually accomplish. And the reason I say, like, at first, get the synopsis, and then second, be realistic, is because you can look at your synopsis and then when you're thinking, am I being realistic? Right? If you're not being realistic, if the story's way too big for what you can feasibly accomplish for the amount of time you have available, then you can always rework that synopsis, rework those bulletin points, right? So again, do the bulletin points, do the synopsis. Where does my story begin? Where does my story end? Second thing, am I being realistic with my time? Would I have enough time to get this done? Am I going to be able to keep my attention for that much time? The third thing too is organizing your comics. This is organizing the files, organize your process. How am I going to be building this? I'm going to start with the roughs, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do that. Have a way to track your progress. That's super important, because let me tell you, nothing is a greater like motivator than progress. So if you can feasibly track your progress, like, oh, I only have three more roughs to do, and then I'm done with all the roughs, and it's just line work and coloring. Or, hey, I have all my pages all lined up, and all I need to do is do the coloring and wording, right? That gives you so much motivation to continuously do it, instead of like, okay, I got chapter one done, or I got page one done, and then I'm gonna do page seven, when you're more all over the place. And again, you don't have to do it the same way I do it. You don't have to organize yourself the same way I organize myself, but having some way to track your progress, having some way to organize yourself is just gonna set you up for success, right? So organization is the next thing that you want to do. Organize your files, organize um what's it called, like your system of how you're going to be going about these pages, all of that. Fourth step is you just got to do it. You got to buckle down and do it, and this is going to take the most discipline, because if you have never done any long form what's it called, any long form project like this, where Grim Living, like, to do the first chapter, it took me the better part of a year to get it done. And am I gonna say I wasn't procrastinating? Of course I was procrastinating. But you take that into account. But I know all too well like how hard it is to sit down and just do it. Next thing that you want to do, step 5, is you want to understand and learn about the industry. And you can be doing this while you're getting your comic done. It's actually better if you do it while you're getting your comic done. Learn about the industry, learn about standardized pricing, learn about where your local comic book stores are. Try to figure out how you're going to be distributing it, right? And then the last thing I would say, the sixth step is, and again, you can do this alongside any other step, get to know other comic book artists. There's a huge community there, and there are people with far more experience than yourself, far more experience than myself out there, that will be happy and willing to give advice and to show people their process. And if you have free information there, use it, even if it's looking at YouTube videos of people giving out this advice, right? Even if it's like, videos, or a friend of yours that does comic, or you go to a comic book night. That's actually where I met a lot of people that gave me some good advice with Grim Living. It was just like a comic book night. You go there, people work on their comic books, they work on different art projects. Yeah, so just try as much as possible to find people within that industry, because they're going to give you some really useful tips and useful advice and help you out when it comes to creating your own comic. Because I feel at the end of the day, if you're a good person, if we're all good people, we just want people to succeed, right? I want more people to make comic books, because that only benefits me, right? If more people make comic books, that's more people to collaborate with, that's more content to consume. It's just a win-win all around, right? And I love art, so I want people to, indulge in the thing that I love so much. So that's why I say I'm gonna repeat it one more time, just for the people in the back. For the people in the back, I'm gonna repeat it one more time. You ready? All right. So, and I'm not gonna be giving any like huge analysis. You can watch this video if you want a huge analysis. I'll post it on my YouTube channel, Grim Living Comics. Anyway, so my 6 tips for any comic book artist, and remember, I'm not no big person, is number 1, write a synopsis or bullet points on everything that you want to happen in the comic. So, how do you want it to start? What's going to happen? What characters are going to be introduced? So on and so forth. And you're also going to do that with your individual pages or chapters. Second step, be realistic. Take a look at your synopsis. Take a look at what you want to have happen. Is this realistic given my time? Is this realistic given my budget? If not, let's rework it. If so, let's continue. The third step is be organized. Organize all your files. Organize how you're doing your process. Organize everything so you can track your progress. The fourth step, pedal to the metal. Let's just do it. Let's draw us a comic book. The fifth step, and the last 2 steps can be done at whatever time you want. The fifth step is learn about the comic book industry, learn about standard practices, look about pricing rates, look at what questions most comic book stores or other realtors will ask you if you want to sell your comic book out of their stores. The sixth step, is talk to other comic book creators. There's a wealth of knowledge there for you, ripe for the taking. All you have to do is connect to these people, figure out what they did, what you can do to help yourself with that process, and you're well on your way. That's what I would say. Those are the things at least that I did to kind of help me on my journey. And yeah, like I made great progress, and I thought that my comic book would like I wasn't even expecting to break even, to be honest with you. But not only did I break even, but I made a profit, which is great. And I didn't know all this at the time, right? I was just following my process, doing my thing that I was doing, and then I had a lot of great people give me help, and a lot of great people in my life support me along the way. So, yeah, that's the advice I would give you. Another thing that you could do if you want to create comic book characters or a comic book, um, I love consuming different like fantasy media, whether it be TV shows, video games. My favorite fantasy series is actually a book series called the Stormlight Archives. And what I found out is that the writer of the Stormlight Archives, Brandon Sanderson, he has a YouTube channel where he posts his lectures, like because he's also a professor. He just posts his lectures up on the YouTube channel, and I'm like, fam, like this is crazy, like like people's paying money for this, and I could just get it for free. So if you can do that, and you could learn that way. Um, Actually, watching some of his series on his YouTube channel for writing really like kind of informed what I want to do with my characters and helped me steer away from like overusing certain things or not being true to a character. Uh, like I'm a character guy, right? Setting is cool. The setting is cool. I have a friend, and my friend is more of a character person, but sorry, more of a setting person. Me, I'm like, it doesn't really matter what world it takes place in, so long as the characters are interesting. So with my characters, like I really wanted to go all out and make fun characters. Like since I'm on him, Tom. This is my main character right over here. This is Tom. I think I said this in the last stream, but I'll just say it again. I wanted to make him a different character, and I thought, how do I do this? So as I was watching those videos, and even from just consuming um, so much different style of media, I kind of came up with the character arc that I want. I'm not gonna obviously say the character arc, but what I will say is Tom is not the typical protagonist. Now, this comic is heavily influenced off of Japanese shonen manga, so there are some tropes there, but I didn't want to make him the typical shonen character. So whereas most shonen characters are like, they're a little bit dumb, or at least they're dumb in the sense of they don't really recognize things right away. They're always good-hearted. They always like want the best for the people around them, and they're very much about friendship. You can see like a lot of characters like that. Tom is a little bit of the opposite. So Tom is, well, when you start to get to know him more in the beginning, in the first page, he's kind of dazed because he doesn't know what's going on. But as he gets into it, like Tom is a little bit of a prick. Uh, and by that I mean like he's very self-focused and self-centered. He's not your typical like, oh, I want to be the pirate king, Hokage, master wizard king. His goals are not like that. He just wants to know what the hell is going on. And because of that, he's very, very self-serving. He's very self-focused. And he's not what you think your typical shonen is. And his character arc is actually not becoming selfless. That's not his character arc, right? Which in most cases, if you have a selfish character, their character arc would then be going from selfish to selfless. That's not his character arc. uh Another thing that I want to do is well, not that I want to do, but when you're creating characters, you have to think about the likability, right? Because even though he is kind of a prick, you still want the readers to like him and in some cases empathize with him because this is your main character. So even though Tom is a little bit of a prick, how do I try to do this? Well, number one, I put him in a situation where anybody would kind of be flustered, right? He's in a situation where he wakes up in a very strange place. He doesn't remember anything about his life. He doesn't know his name. And then the Grim Reaper appears. And she just starts telling him, oh, you got to do this. You got to do this. Any person in that situation will be confused, will be flustered, and maybe just a little bit irritable. That's the first way I kind of build empathy with Tom. Like, if I was in that situation, I'd be kind of upset too, right? The next way, and I kind of learned this from Brandon Sanderson's talk, is another way that you can make a character likable is by making them competent. So, because of Tom's past, and I won't say what that is to spoil anything, he is very competent in his abilities. He doesn't really understand why, but he is very competent in his abilities. And then the last thing is he's a jokester, right? Not really like a haha jokester, but he just says some funny stuff from time to time. And even when he's expressing anger, he would say in like a funny way, right? Like I literally have a page where he's slicing down the character, and the character is giving this like big speech. I am your retribution. And Tom's like, no, you're a saluting. For those of you know, for those of you know what that is, you know. For those of you don't, Urban Dictionary. So in that way, like even in parts where you're like, oh damn, I can't believe you said that, you're still kind of chuckling, right? Still kind of chuckling with him, and because of his situation, you can kind of empathize. And then it just comes into this point where it's like, okay, he's doing these things, but we're already kind of on his side. Let's see where it goes. That's kind of how I want to build Tom. I have more characters that I'm so excited to introduce in this issue. And again, a big problem of mine is I can't just introduce a character for the sake of, okay, this is what I need them for, and then they're gone. I was creating, because in this, I'm saying and a lot. Like, don't do that when you guys are talking. I needed a way to introduce the villain and show that the villain was a real threat. And one of the ways I decided to do that is because in the original Grim Living, you had this order of people who follow Lady Death. However, they are nowhere as competent in level of power as a Grim or a Guardian of Death, right? That's what Grims are. So I was going to have a group of these warriors called Good Utes. I was going to have these Good Utes go in search of the main villain in order to bring a stop to what he's doing. And then just, they just get decimated, obviously. But I'm like, I spent so much time on the character design. Like, let me see if I can show you the character design. Let me open up something here. Let me see if I can show you the character design of the people that I wanted, the people that are gonna be introduced in this issue. I think it should be done. See, that's what I'm talking about. Organization, guys. Be more organized than me. Yeah, right here. All right, so these are the Good Utes. They're a group of fighters that fight alongside Grims. They have a different set of powers, but they fight alongside Grims. They're not as strong as the typical Grim would be, which is why Lady Death still needs to make Tom into a Grim and why she still needs that. But these are the Good Utes. I spent so much time on their designs. I wanted the clothing that they wear. Okay, this has a meaning, right? So, for example, you see this character right over here, and I believe his name is Jaden. Is Jaden or Jason? So this character over here, you can see he's wearing his robe as a scarf. He has, the waistcut jacket all white with the skin tight black inside and the kind of like form fitting white pants. And that tells you something about his character, right? He obviously looks like, he's the pretty boy. He's the wannabe player or what have you. Then you have this character over here. And what I wanted to do is I took inspiration from Bleach again, because in Bleach, a big part of what they do is they have uniforms. So if you know Bleach, the Gote 13 or the captains, they have uniforms, but they all do a little bit something different with the uniform in order to distinguish themselves. So somebody like Kenpachi Zaraki, he has the sleeves just like jaggedly torn off of his captain coat, and that kind of shows you, oh yeah, he's the more rugged guy. He has an eye patch on, his hair's in spikes. He's the more rugged, more brutal guy. Then you juxtapose that with someone like Byakuga, who he still has the sleeves cut off, but it's more orderly, right? It's not jagged, it's more orderly. He has a nice scarf. He has these like little things in his hair showing that he's, from more royal background. You have Kiraku. I think that's his name, the lazy captain, and he wears a pink shawl over his captain's gown, letting you show that, like, okay, maybe he's not the strictest for the values of the Gote 13 or tradition. He likes to do his own thing. So with these designs of the good youths, I want to do the same thing. So you got, and if you look, they all have similar elements to them. So they all have the white coat, the black inside, they have some sort of blue sash on them, and that's everybody. But the way they wear it is different, and it kind of tells about their character. So you have Jaden over here, and he wears his scarf. He wears his jacket like he's a '90s R&B singer. That's actually why I kind of modeled him after a '90s R&B singer. And you just suppose that to this character right over here, whose name is Joffrey. And yes, all their names start with a J. And Joffrey, if you look at him, immediately he has the coat half off. He's got the sash around himself. He's just oozing with muscle. So he has the more what's it called, like the spandex or the tight uh pants in order to give him better range of motion. He has one arm that's completely free. And I remember I think it was my sister who came. She seen this design. She's like, "Hey, why doesn't he just? Sorry about that. Why doesn't he just wear take off the jacket? If he's gonna wear it like that anyway, why not take off the jacket?" And then my reasoning to that was because he has a lot of respect for the order of the good youths. So even though it's more advantageous to fight with it off, he still wants to show that respect by wearing it in the first place. So that's kind of like his ideology, which kind of shows you a lot about him. Obviously, this person seems like he has, a power system that's maybe not physical. Whereas this person right here, you see the scars on his face, you see him rippling with muscles. He's definitely a bruiser, a physical fighter. Now we have this character over here. Her name is Jolene, and yes, that's straight from JoJo's. And Jolene, I decided to because I want diversity in this comic where it's like there's a lot of different people who are represented. So I have trans friends, and I think it'd be cool if they put up a comic and there's like a trans character that was there. Whenever I write characters though, um their arc is about the story and not necessarily what they are. I have a lot of black characters in this. The story and their character arcs is not necessarily about them being black. Although it's very like distinctive quote unquote black things that they would say, or they give off that energy. So it's not just a character who has darker skin. They are black people, but their character arcs and the story is not about them being black. It's in the same way here, how this person obviously is a, well, not obviously, but this person is a trans person, but their story arc is not necessarily about them being trans. However, that does play a role down the line. But I really wanted Jolene to be a more eccentric character. She's modeled after a JoJo's character. So like that's what I want her to be. So that's why she has the pink and green hair. She has the eye patch on the side. You see her with her scars. Her eyes are just piercing, looking right at you. Another character that I had, and this is again for more diversity, is this character over here. Her name's Jada. So yes, Jaden, Joffrey, Jolene, and Jada. So all of them are J's. And I remember I was watching this one anime. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's like Gunslinger or something like that. Uh, it's about essentially a character who is unable, like he can't die, and all, or not all, but most of the characters are black in this anime. And one thing that I really like about it is it has, like, for black people, has representation all over. one representation that I don't see a lot in media is with people with vitiligo. So that's a condition that Jada has here that's causing like the discoloration in different parts of her body. So I thought, hey, there's not enough of that. Let me add it in my own, right? And you could call me, oh, you bleeding heart liberal, diversity for diversity's sake. I want to do it. It's my comic. I can do whatever I want. So I want to add that in. Also, another criticism that I see from a lot of comics, and I kind of like looking at my character design, I'm like, oh yeah, you're not wrong, is a lot of people typically have one or two body types. Either it's the muscular body type or the slender body type, especially when we're talking about women. So I wanted to kind of change that with Jada and some other characters that I'm going to introduce. Jada is not a skinny character by any means, and she is also disabled. She can't walk. That's why she uses this huge axolotl. And that's not just the only disabled representation. I don't know if you guys peeped it from the last stream, but I have another character who's a another major character. Let me see if I can open it up here. And yeah. So this is Sarah. And Sarah's in the beginning of the series, he's one of the strongest characters. And as you see here, he does not have fully formed arms. He's so I remember when people seen this, they're like, "Oh, what happened to his arms? Did he get cut off? Did he get whatever?" And I'm like, "Nah, he was just born like that." And this was his original design. This was his design all the way back when I first conceived of Grim Living in 2015. And I'll show you here. Let me see. Let me see. Dun, 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 dun. Young Moolah baby. Uh, ready to be worded. So yeah, you can see this is obviously, oh man, whew, the improvement. But yeah, you can see here he still doesn't have arms, and I just did that because I'm like, why not? Like it'd be cool for a person, with this disability to be like, oh, we got heroes too. I know like growing up, that was a big thing for me. We only had like Static Shock, Green Lantern, and I think that was it. Yeah, like Static Shock and Green Lantern. That's maybe Steel, like in the one episode he showed in. But yeah, and like for me that was huge seeing it. Oh, Cyborg. Seeing black characters being represented in media, especially like superheroes, things that I watched, that was super cool for me. And I always latched onto those characters because you usually identify with people that are in some way similar to you. If they come from the same country as you, if you speak the same language as them, if you have similar backgrounds. So I just thought, yo, it'd be cool just to have that representation. And I didn't want it to make it like, oh, he lost his hands or anything like that. It's just nah. He was just born like that. His character arc is not about him being someone who doesn't have any arms. Again, that does come into play later on in the comic in a tasteful way. But yeah, you know, I just wanted to do that. And another thing too is I'm a big person on the permanence of something happening. Just before I say that, yeah, like all this started because I wanted to say I couldn't get rid of characters. I did these character designs and I love them so much. So they may find their way in other parts of the stories. Because I just love these character designs. Um so yeah, let me get back to what I was originally doing. Yeah, so that's Uh, another thing is that I like permanence. And what I mean by that is you look at something like Finn's arm in Adventure Time. For any of you who watch Adventure Time, like it was foreshadowed for so long that he would lose his arm, and then he does, and then people were so upset when it's like a few episodes later he gets it back. Now, yes, he does lose his arm more permanently uh in the latter parts of the series, but initially, like, people are like, come on. I don't really fly with that unless the character needs it for their arc. But for me, it's like, yo, if I take away something, it's gone. Like, if I take away something, it's gone. That character is not gonna get it back. Like, there's very little what's it called? Plot armor. Like, if a character is supposed to lose, they will lose. If a character is gonna win, they will win. Now, obviously, you know, there'd be a little bit of plot armor, just a little bit. I don't think that's bad, just a little bit. But they gotta feel some sort of consequences for their actions. But yeah, I did not get a lot of drawing done because I was just yapping, just a yapaholic for this entire stream. But what I will do is I will, on my off time, I'll finish these colors and then I will get back to you with kind of the more completed drawing. I'm still getting used to talking while I'm drawing. Usually I don't do that. Usually you throw on your headphones and you just I don't know what song I'm listening to that goes it's like generic rock song number 3. Maybe that's what we could talk about for next stream. Yeah, that'd be cool. Like music taste, what you guys like listening to when you're when you're doing your thing with your art or whatever. Yeah, it doesn't have to be art. It can be like whatever you do that needs focus. Yeah, what you like listening to. So yeah, with such little work being done, I think I'm gonna end it here. And I will see you guys next Saturday. I'm gonna try to do it earlier. I was just busy a little bit earlier, so let's say next Saturday at 3 o'clock. All right, we'll try to shoot for Saturdays at 3 o'clock. I think that's a good time. Anyway, thank you for watching the stream. Once again, for those of you who don't know, I am Grim Gordon, and for those of you who do, that's weird. Have a good one.